Okay, welcome to our session on Agile Portfolio Management. My name is Richard Frederick, and before we start, I want to reach out to my partner, my sponsor, the IIBA of Tampa Bay, and invite those of you who are not members yet to join our group. It doesn't cost anything, which is the best. That's the best part of it. And we are very active, as you can see. We do these sessions every week. The only weeks I'm taking off Thanksgiving and around the Christmas holidays, and then I'm picking up the first week after January, and then I'll have a whole new set of sessions out into January, February, March, April, as far out as I can go. You guys keep coming back, I'll keep doing them. So that's kind of how it works. Anyway, this particular session is kind of the a follow-up to many of the other sessions that we've taught in the past. In particular, the session about Agile and waterfall assembly, as well as the session that we did last week regarding project estimating, where we talked about really 3 phases of estimating and what I would call, six steps of the process of moving from expert judgment through planning, poker, and story points to bottom-up estimating or historical analogous estimating, which is really where you're just cloning records from a previous project, to parametric estimating, and then ultimately to Monte Carlo analysis, which is regression or prediction. All of these courses, if you're new to these classes, if you're just now attending, if this is your first one, the purpose of all of these are to allow business analysts to understand what's necessary to elicit testable requirements for business data analytics, which really is the underlying driver behind the digital transformation. Our goal here is to teach analysts or anybody to elicit requirements to train intelligent assistants. And to do that, it's all based on business data analytics, which is the language of data. Intelligent assistance is data. Digital transformation is data. So data is the new oil. Data is here to stay. What's great about all of these sessions, as well as the classes that I teach, is that they're timeless from here on out, meaning you can take this class or you can take my class, and 15 years from now, all of the material will still be, for the most part, the technology will probably change, but conceptually, all the conceptual information will still be the same, which is great. This particular slide, for those of you who are new, has all these logos. I always tell everybody, I sort of joke that if you're struggling with the requirements, you're not alone. All of these groups are trying to wrap their arms around requirements. Requirements are very difficult, as anybody that's been in this business knows. Traditional requirements courses are product and process oriented. Again, no big deal there. There's pretty much every class out there is a product or process oriented requirements class. So I kind of went on my own and put together one specifically geared towards data. So quickly, here's the agenda. It's a traditional requirements class. It follows the traditional elicit, analyze, document, validate format. Only difference is that there's a much larger focus on data as opposed to product and process. And again, mainly because that's our future. So I sort of specialize in that. And in addition, there's a correlated project management class that's also about data. And if you get the chance, at the end, my information's at the top, but it's also at the very end. And if you'd like a PDF copy of this or any of the presentations that we've done, just send me an email. I'll get to that at the end. But these 2 agendas are really useful as checklists if you're sitting in a meeting and you're going through trying to figure out, how do we do requirements, or how do we put together a project that is data oriented? Business intelligence, data mining, machine learning, anything of that nature. These are great checklists that you can go through to help you drive your meeting. That's why they're called agendas. You'll notice that these are color coded. Understand the business need, understand the data, prep the data, model the data, evaluate the data, and deploy the solution. They follow something called the CRISP, C-R-I-S-P, cross-industry standard process for data mining and machine learning. The IIBA today has their own certified business data analyst or certified business data analytics credential that is basically the same thing. It's just a modern version of the CRISP DMML. My background, very quickly, I owned a software company in the 1990s. We specialized in software integration and workflow automation. We built software robots, which is data. These were robots that ran autonomously, meaning with no humans involved. Once you built them, they just ran on their own. I mentioned in previous classes that I thought by the year 2005, when I started teaching full time, that everybody would be automated. It took about another 15 years to get to here, where we're just now really rolling all of this stuff out. I've given it another 5 years. Within 5 years, your jobs will look very different than they do today. So just heed that advice. That's what these courses are about, getting you prepared for what's here. It just maybe hasn't deployed to your desk yet. So each of these sessions is about what we call seek to understand. Again, you'll notice at the right, there's photographs and they have colored outlines. Those outlines are corresponding to the project management agenda. At the top is my business analyst in purple, business analyst product owner. Product owner. Underneath is my project manager, scrum master role. Underneath that is my IT system architect role. Underneath that is my developer / data scientist / subject matter expert role. Underneath that is my QA test role. And then finally, at the bottom, you'll see a person in blue. That represents intelligent assistants. This group I call the team of the future. And these courses are about training, taking what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and training intelligent assistants as a new member of your team. Again, if you're new to this, this is your first session, I think this is our 15th. So, but if you're new to this, that all of these are recorded. You can go back if you need access to any of the previous ones. Again, at the very end, I'll show you my email. You can send me an email. We also connect these back up to our meetup. The YouTubes are on the meetup, as well as on LinkedIn and the LinkedIn group for the IIBA Tampa Bay. Cliff has put into the text chat, if you get a chance, the different ways that you can join our group through LinkedIn, through our Facebook, and as well as through Meetup. So, all right, so let's get in and talk about what are we going to cover today. We're going to talk about really scalable agile, 5 levels of agile planning, portfolio management, create, select, plan, manage, close, scalable agile portfolio management, and just the tools. So we're going to connect a lot of these different dots that are sort of floating around in different locations. I'm going to try to connect all these dots together. So let me start with scalable agile. And to do this, I'm going to use the example from SAFe. I know that many of you don't use SAFe, so I don't want to make it out like, well, SAFe is the only way to go. It's not. There's a lot of different approaches to scaling your agile environment. This just happens to be the one that I'm most comfortable with because I'm a lean practitioner. My software company was lean back 20 years ago. And so today we would, if I was saying it today, I would be saying that we are I would say that we are we'd be scalable agile today, the SAFe framework. The thing that I want you to see on this slide, you'll notice again the team of the future on the right, and on the left you'll see again three levels. The top level is what I would call your director, executive director sort of level. They're at what we would consider the portfolio level. Underneath them are your subject matter experts, your managers, you know, that group that we support our stakeholders. And then at the bottom, you'll see the business analyst product owner, again, to show that that's the link. So that's kind of why I did it that way. So, you know, we've got the link between the team on the right, and the link back to our stakeholders on the left. And you'll see that there's 3 levels: portfolio, program, and team. So that's the approach that I try to use as we go through this, is to think in those levels: portfolio, program, and team. I'm not going to go through this in detail, just kind of touch on a few things. Absolutely everything, all the slides, you can get all these slides as a PDF, and I'll point that out at the very end. So everything that I have is open source. We hope that you will share it out to as many people as you wish. So, all right. So anyway, what we want to do here is kind of talk about at the top, in the portfolio world, we talk about epics. Below epics, we get into what I call features or use cases. Everybody's got a different way that they describe this. And then at the bottom are your requirements or your stories or your tasks, the transactional work that we do in order to build our features into our releases. So the middle predominantly is your scope, your higher level scope, and at the highest would be kind of your targets, what you're shooting for. So I want to touch on 5 levels of planning institutionally. So most Agile courses that I've participated in generally focus on roadmap, release plans, and daily sprinting transactions. What we're adding here is the idea of the highest level, which is kind of the vision of the institution. So we're just going to start there. Vision defines who, what, when, why, the constraints, the assumptions, the objectives, and the business objectives in the form of key performance indicators or measures. And for those of you that were in previous sessions with me, I talked about the only reason we have jobs is because executives have key performance indicators. We all exist to support their metrics. And so it's those metrics that drive the work that we do. Right now, if you're not part of that process, that communication process, then some of this seems really foreign because you're not in those day-to-day meetings with executives. But I promise you, every day, that's all they talk about. And those of you who have been in those meetings know exactly what I'm talking about. What are you going to do to get your number? How are you going to hit your number? Where are we at on your number? That was the numbers game. We talked about that previously. Most of these key performance indicators are non-financial that correlate to financial results. Again, that was a previous session. Once those numbers are established, then what happens is a roadmap is created. How do we get from where we are to where we're going to go? All right, and that's kind of the current assessment to future target. Once they figure out a roadmap, then the process gets decomposed into a release plan. And in a large-scale environment, you might have something known as a release train engineer who kind of facilitates this process across many different groups that are building different components of a larger solution. Most Agile courses, and again, not a knock, just a recognition, we're really focused on one project at a time when we teach people Agile, as opposed to dozens of projects that are happening simultaneously. So the goal of this was to sort of let you know that here's how we look at lots of projects in the form of groups known as programs, and then we still do all of the detailed planning. Some shops are still waterfall in the way that they approach planning. Some have transitioned to Agile in the way that they approach planning. And the difference really is in waterfall, it's much more of a top-down planning, or at least guidance. And in traditional, that's traditional waterfall. In Agile, it's more of a bottom-up sort of approach where the team gets to decide predominantly how to build the solution. Again, I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong. My experience is that every institution does it differently, and there's no really wrong way to do it. It's just to do it the way your institution wants to do it, whatever works best for you. All right. again, with most of the Agile courses that I participate in, we're really focused at the lowest level, which is the team level. What are we doing at the team level? Stories, tasks, definition of done, level of effort, commitment to the work. And again, the daily plan presented, every day in the form of, hey, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? What are your obstacles to success, your impediments? So that's just in general the 5 levels of planning. Portfolio management is really a very broad, encompassing concept that really covers everything. So it's not just at the transactional level, it's the highest level to the lowest level. And a lot of these approaches, like for example, I always joke about how requirements, I say the 4 fingers: elicit, analyze, document, validate. I say project management: initiate, plan, execute, control, and close, 5 fingers. Portfolio management, again, 5 fingers: create, select, plan, manage, close. I just use these as a way to remember how each of these groups is structured. Portfolio management is generally known as create and select at the highest level, and then plan, manage, and close at the lower levels. And we're going to talk about that. The portfolio management systems are now being integrated. It used to be that you kind of had a separation between your project management system and your portfolio management systems, and somebody had to go back and connect those dots manually, which was very time consuming. Today, most of those systems now that we work with are grouped together into one giant solution, and then we just give you access privileges to the section that is relevant to you. So if you don't need access to certain things, you don't even see those parts of the software, they don't even show up for you. But as you matriculate up through your organization, you'll get access to certain things, and you'll start to see that, oh, hey, wait a minute, this is where all that data goes. So you'll notice on this slide, it says create, select, plan, and manage. At the gate, they call them gates, project portfolio management gates, right? And then underneath that, there's a process that you go through, and we're going to cover that in more detail in a later session under what's known as demand management and the efficient frontier. But generally speaking, and you can just kind of read it: define drivers, develop your inventory. And again, we've used that term inventory to talk about requirements as inventory, projects as reusable inventory. And then select is really this process of prioritization. And as you go down, though, under create, you'll see it says business case. And I bring this up because I teach a lot of business case courses, and it's interesting. I have a lot of executives that'll show, but I don't really get as many product owners or business analysts in those classes as I would have hoped, mainly because I guess institutionally, a lot of organizations don't make that the role of the business analyst, product owner. However, in the future, I tell everybody, hey, if you get the opportunity to work on a business case, you should participate, because that's really where the executive level communicates through the process to everybody else in the institution. So the business case is really what triggers everything into the portfolio management system. So last week we talked about project estimating, and the reason I said that was so important was that a lot of business analysts aren't really trained to estimate. The estimate in a lot of institutions makes its way to the business case. It's a part of the business case, and then once it's in the business case environment, then it moves into the select stage, where it goes through what's known as demand management. And demand management is my running joke about there's way more work than there are people to do it. Value streams is the whole process. So value streams, the question is, somebody put a question in the text, value streams is your entire process. And at the end, you'll see it says value streams. So you'll see it says business case, demand management, resource management, and then value streams. Value streams show you your key performance indicators that are color coded. So anytime you get a dashboard, that's really the end result of your value stream. Does that make sense? So if you're looking at a dashboard and there's red lights and yellow lights and green lights, that's the end result of your value stream. Cool, excellent. And then at the bottom, you'll see it says Central Data Repository trains intelligent assistants. So really that's what this is all about, is all of the work that we're putting into our system is there to teach our assistants, intelligent assistants. And I don't use the word artificial intelligence because we're still so far away from that. But what is here today is intelligent assistance, and intelligent assistance is used to help you, number one, forecast. So we do a lot of manual forecasting still based on value streams, believe it or not. And we're going to teach that later. That's called earned value. I'm going to go through and talk about, actual divided by plan, and we'll talk about, all the different components of earned value and how you generate forecast from status. It's called setup, status, forecast. All of that data for years and years and years was handled by a lot of different humans. And the humans in the process would get the data and kind of batch it on their own and analyze it and then make decisions. And then those decisions would then be fed back into the machine in the form of new business cases or new projects. The theory is that you don't do a project, you don't actually get to the lower levels of a roadmap until a business case has been approved. So this is the reason why the business case is so important, is because before someone says, yeah, let's spend some money, and you guys go and do your full on increment zero planning, we need to validate that this is a feasible idea. So all of this is part of what portfolio management is really all about, and I use it this way. I said, if I only had $1 to spend, where would I spend it? That's really what your CFO is asking. Hey, we only have $1 to spend. Where's the highest and best use for that dollar? That's really what portfolio management is about. And the way you figure that out is by understanding, number one, where you're trying to go, and number two, what resources do you have on staff right now, and what resources will you need to get you from where you're at to where you want to go. We call that situation, target, proposal, STP. Okay. In a more granular level, so that's just an example of a portfolio management system. Here's kind of a more granular level from how the systems and the data repositories sort of play out. So at the top level, you have, we call, in the portfolios, you've got really on this slide, you've got really 4 repositories. You've got a service portfolio, you've got a portfolio backlog, and then that service portfolio is kind of the highest level. What are the things that we do best as an organization? What do we do? What's our strengths? It goes through the create select process. If you just go down where it says create select, and there's kind of a line that splits this slide into 2. And there's a couple of boxes, demand management and release train, that overlap both sides. So on the left side, you've got create select. On the right side, you've got plan, manage, close. On the left side of create and select, the executives are trying to figure out, highest and best use of resource. Once they've decided on a direction, then it goes down to stakeholders and the team, whose job it is to do what's known as discovery. How do we figure out how to implement or execute on what senior management wants us to do? In the project estimating, I showed you how there was 3 phases of planning. Discovery, so here you see the word elicitation and discovery. So that's the rough order of magnitude planning. Then there was the planning phase, which we got into. And so I said under discovery, we used expert judgment and planning poker, and then we transitioned into what we call the iterative planning phase, where we talked about a more detailed version of your roadmap that would fill up your backlog, or a cloned records of a previous project that would fill up your backlog. Then you might go through and do some analysis against that. If you had a lot of those projects already in your portfolio backlog that you've done in the past, you could build parametric estimates from that portfolio backlog that would then help you come up with future features that you might need in your solution. Then from those features, you would then decompose that information into transactional sprint information, which is your story points, and your tasks. So all of this stuff all works together. And hopefully what you'll do is be able to go back through and connect all these 4 slides together, which is kind of what I've been trying to do. It's a lot of different information, so but I try to connect those dots as best I could. Finally, terminology. This, when I saw this, I said, okay, this is a really good, useful tool, because portfolio tools have their own terminology, and structured or scaled agile has its own terminology. And so I want to show you how they're kind of the same thing. So strategic impact and investment theme. Investment themes reflect how a portfolio allocates budget to the various initiatives that it has defined to implement the portfolio business strategy. So I did the session on the numbers game, financial and non-financial management, which is really about accounting. And last week I talked about adding value to the valueless concept of a story point. And I kept saying that if you are in a situation where you have to communicate with financial people, like I do, telling somebody that, or explaining a story point as a valueless number, that doesn't go over very well. They need dollars. They want dollars. Everything's got to at some point be converted or correlated back to dollars. So non-financial correlates to financial results. We covered that. But I need you to know this, because the portfolio management tool, it runs on this. I mean, this is the highest level thing that it's working against. We're going to get into more detail later on. I'm actually going to walk you through the process of demand management. But that's such an important concept. And for most of us at the lowest level, we don't really deal with dollars. Unless you're a director level individual, if you're staff, you're not really dealing with dollars. And in Agile, we're really not even dealing with durations anymore, because sprints are 2-week sets. They're already preset. And again, in Agile, your schedule dictates your scope. So you're pulling stuff off your backlog that you can fit into your sprint based on how you've identified it based on story points. Okay, we've covered all those, so I can't go through that again right now. But as we go through, so I want you to see where, okay, so in the Agile world, we call them epics. And there's business epics and there's architectural epics. So obviously architectural is your structure of your institution, and the business is what you're trying to accomplish. In the portfolio management world, they call those projects. So the word project is a little confusing, because what is a project to us at the lowest level, at the staff level, is very different than a project at the highest level. So at the staff level, we might see a project as a transactional project to get something built, whereas institutionally at the executive level, a project might include an entire department. Like, hey, we got this 500 person department, and the executives are, we have a project for that whole department itself is this big project. So just keep that in mind, that the portfolio tools kind of communicate at the highest possible level. Roadmaps are roadmaps, so that's great. If you call them roadmaps, that's outstanding. If you don't call them roadmaps, that's fine also. Whatever term you use, work breakdown structure, if you're a work breakdown structure kind of group, that's similar concept. Release, again, is a standard term, and a PSI release, potentially shippable increment, or MVP, minimum viable product, is the larger development time box. Super sprint, we might call it, that uses cadence and synchronization to facilitate planning, provide for aggregation of newsworthy value, provide a quantum unit of thinking for portfolio level consideration, and road mapping. So the road mapping is your breakdown of what you're trying to accomplish. Your potentially shippable increment, which is an agile term, or a scalable agile term, but it could also be a minimum viable product. Again, just depends on how your shop wants to communicate. Features are features in both environments. They tend to be scope, right? What are the scope items that we're trying to manufacture? We always say that, there's nouns, right? Scope, and then there's verbs, which are tasks and activities. Use case scenarios and stories. So I'm I'm of the opinion that use cases can be both features and stories. They don't have to be one or the other. So I kind of mix all of it together: feature, story, feature, use case, story. Again, that's just me and the way I look at the world. But if your group separates everything out into different areas, that's okay too. I mean, it's whatever works for you. As it says, stories are the agile replacement for traditional forms of requirement specifications, which really is what all of these sessions have been about. How do we write testable statements ultimately for data? Why? Because data drives intelligent assistance. So that's really kind of coming back to what we've been trying to do through the whole process. And then institutionally, we have these functional requirements, and then we have non-functional requirements, which they're going to call steps in the portfolio. Scalable Agile calls them NFRs. These are Q4 requirements. If you remember back when I talked about the 4 quadrants of testing, that the way you write requirements is around how you're going to test those requirements. So all of these pieces are designed to connect together. Okay. So in summary, let me go back. So we talked about Scalable Agile, which is safe. We talked about 5 levels of Agile planning. We talked about what I call the 5 fingers of portfolio management: create, select, plan, manage, and close. We talked about Scalable Agile portfolio management and just kind of how the system works with the repositories. And then finally, kind of relating terminology from Scalable Agile to your traditional portfolio tool. All right, so that brings us to the end of our session. So we're done for today. If you have any questions, feel free to ask away. Any questions on any of the information that we just provided? I'm looking over to see if there's questions coming up in the text chat. Talk or text, either way. Any questions?
I thought this was great. No, I thought this was great.
Okay, good. Good. Hopefully I cleared up some, whatever was missing. That's the whole point of these sessions, is to fill in to the traditional curriculum. Again, not that there's anything wrong with the traditional curriculum. It's that we can only teach you so many things in a class. So all of these sessions are designed to add the pieces that really are kind of missing from what we teach people traditionally in our courses. If you have an interest in the PDF, please send me an email to rfrederick.pmp@gmail.com. Again, our meetup, Tampa Bay IIBA. If you found us through LinkedIn, great. If you found us through Meetup, fantastic. Either way, please feel free to join us every week. If you're interested in the classes that I teach, specifically the requirements class for data or the project management class for data, again, feel free to reach out to me. If you'd like to schedule a meeting, you can do it through HubSpot, whatever you want to do. So, okay, so if you need information from previous presentations, just send me an email, rfrederick.pmp@gmail.com. And you can entitle it previous presentations, and I will send you a link to I'll send you all the PDFs as well as links to all of the YouTube videos. So.
Yeah, hi Richard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, this is Dilip here. I'm here newbie, first time joining your session.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was very educational. That was really good. I'm aware of Agile, and I have worked as a business owner, product owner several times. I have managed the project, I planned for the project. So this is definitely helpful. And I'm going to send you email. I put my email address also here. So I'll be interested in seeing the PDF files you have been sharing with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it would be easier for you to send me an email than for me to try to copy that really fast.
Yeah, I would definitely.
If you don't mind. Yeah, and again, we do this every Friday. We try to keep them short because I know everybody's busy. It's your lunchtime, so they usually don't last more than 30 minutes. And again, thank you for coming out. So just send me an email to rfrederick.pmp@gmail.com if you want access to all the previous YouTubes as well as the PDFs. Plus, once this recording is done, it will be listed back on the LinkedIn as well as the meetup site underneath the event. So you'll be able to get access to directly tied to the event. So again, thank you all for your time. We're done, and I hope to talk to you guys again next week.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Looking forward to hearing from you both.
Great, thank you.